The morning rush at Maple Street Diner was in full swing when Margaret noticed the elderly man, sitting alone in the corner booth. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he counted and recounted the crumpled bills and loose change spread across the worn Formica table. She had been a waitress here for 12 years, long enough to recognize the look of someone calculating whether they had enough money for a simple cup of coffee. The man wore a faded brown cardigan that had seen better days, its elbows worn thin and edges frayed. His shoes, though clean, showed years of careful repair work with patches of different colored leather. Everything about him spoke of quiet dignity maintained despite obvious financial struggle. Margaret watched as he pushed the coins round one more time, his shoulders sagging with what appeared to be resignation, without hesitation. She grabbed the coffee pot and walked over to his table. "Good morning," she said with the warm smile that had made her a favorite among the diner's regulars. "Coffee to start." The man looked up, his pale blue eyes brightening at her genuine kindness. Well, I was just checking if I have enough," he said softly, gesturing to the small pile of money. Margaret glanced at the collection of quarters, dimes, and worn dollar bills. She could see it wasn't quite enough for coffee and the muffin he had been eyeing on the menu board. "Don't you worry about that," she said, filling his cup with the rich, dark brew. "This one's on the house, and I think you'd enjoy our blueberry muffin too. It's fresh from the oven." The man's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, I couldn't possibly, nonsense." Margaret interrupted gently. "Everyone deserves a good breakfast. Besides, you remind me of my grandfather. He had the same kind eyes." She returned moments later with a warm blueberry muffin, butter melting in a small ceramic dish beside it. The man's gratitude was palpable, his voice thick with emotion as he thanked her repeatedly. Margaret simply patted his shoulder and moved on to her other customers, thinking nothing more of the gesture than what it was, a small act of human kindness. The elderly man, whose name was Henry, savored every sip of coffee and every bite of the muffin. He watched Margaret as she worked, noting how she remembered each customer's preferences, how she checked on the young mother struggling with toddlers, how she slipped an extra piece of bacon onto the plate of a construction worker who looked particularly tired. There was something special about this woman, something that reminded him of values he had almost forgotten existed in the world. Henry returned to the diner the next morning, and the next. Each time, Margaret treated him with the same warmth and respect she showed everyone else. She never made him feel like a charity case or drew attention to the fact that his meals were often subsidized by her own tips. Instead, she would chat with him about the weather, ask about his day, and listen with genuine interest to his stories about the neighborhood's history. On his fourth visit, Henry learned that Margaret was a single mother working double shifts to support her teenage daughter. Her car had broken down the week before, and she had been taking to buses to get to work, adding an extra hour to her already long commute. Despite her own struggles, she continued to show kindness to others, never complaining about her circumstances or expecting anything in return. What Margaret didn't know was that Henry Whitmore was one of the wealthiest men in the state. 40 years earlier, he had built a technology company from nothing, eventually selling it for billions. He had spent decades managing investments and philanthropic endeavors, but lately, he had grown weary of being surrounded by people who only saw dollar signs when they looked at him. After his wife passed away 2 years ago, he began taking long walks through different neighborhoods, dressing simply and observing how people treated strangers when there was nothing to gain. The experience at Maple Street Diner had restored something in Henry that he thought was lost forever: faith in genuine human goodness. Margaret's kindness came with no agenda, no expectation of reward. She simply saw someone who needed help and provided it without hesitation. Henry made some phone calls that afternoon. By the end of the week, a check arrived at the diner addressed to Margaret. The amount was enough to buy a reliable car, pay off her daughter's college fund, and provide a comfortable cushion for emergencies. Along with the check was a simple note: "Thank you for reminding me. That kindness is the most valuable currency in the world. From a grateful customer." Margaret stared at the check in disbelief, certain there had been some mistake. When she called the number provided, she reached Henry's assistant, who confirmed that the gift was real and came with no strings attached. It was simply a gesture of appreciation from someone whose life had been touched by her compassion. The story might have ended there, but Henry's involvement in Margaret's life was just beginning. He learned that the diner was struggling financially and at risk of closing. The owner, an immigrant family who had poured their life savings into the business, was falling behind on rent and couldn't compete with the chain restaurants moving into the area. Henry quietly purchased the building and became the family's silent partner, providing the capital needed to renovate and modernize. While keeping the diner's homey atmosphere intact, he insisted that Margaret be promoted to manager with a substantial salary increase, though she never learned the identity of the mysterious benefactor who had changed her life. Years later, Margaret still works at Maple Street Diner, now a thriving community gathering place known for its exceptional food and warm service. She has used her experience to create a program that provides free meals to anyone in need. No questions asked. The Pay It Forward board by the register allows customers to prepay meals for others, creating a cycle of kindness that extends far beyond the diner's walls. Henry continues to visit regularly, though Margaret now knows his true identity. Their friendship has deepened over time, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than wealth or status. He often jokes that her cup of coffee was the best investment he ever made, not because of any financial return, but because it returned something invaluable to him: hope in humanity's capacity for goodness. The story of Margaret and Henry serves as a powerful reminder that we never know the impact our actions might have on others. A simple act of kindness, performed without expectation of reward, can ripple outward in ways we never imagine. Margaret's decision to buy coffee for a stranger didn't just feed one hungry person, it transformed multiple lives and created a legacy of compassion that continues to touch her community every day. In a world that often seems driven by self-interest and material gain, their story stands as proof that the most meaningful connections are forged not through wealth or status, but through the simple recognition of our shared humanity. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with nothing more than a warm cup of coffee and an open heart.